So, this is gonna sound crazy. Honestly, don't know if I'm crazy or not. But either I'm crazy or I'm not. So, all my life, I've kind of had this enormous amount of pressure, as probably everyone feels, that it's my purpose here to save us all. And it's kind of a tough thing to live with. So most of my life, I've dealt with either anxiety is probably the correct term, just like a lot of people have. So it's gone everywhere to even, wanting to kill myself. So, like I said, this isn't easy to say. But yeah, I felt this pressure that it was my job my entire life. I'm sure many people have felt this way, and that it's my job to save the entire world. So you can imagine if you don't feel that, if you never felt like that, you can imagine how stressful that it's been. So this is actually feeling pretty good for me to say all this stuff out loud, right? But with that, I still don't really know when or how. I know I can. I know we can. This isn't, I'm not a miracle person. I'm not the God, the creation of existence, right? But I've experienced a lot in my life, and with all my experiences, I've developed understanding. And I think what I'm supposed to do is take the understanding that I've learned and take this knowledge and I guess give it out to the world, and it has, if it's true and if it works, and this is how it's supposed to be, then the world, every single person in the world will have understanding of how of a world peace. So I don't really know how I'm supposed to start with this. I don't even know if I'm starting with this now. This isn't a write down rules kind of thing, or maybe it is. I honestly, I have no idea. It's just this understanding that this is how it's supposed to go. And this is maybe a practice, maybe the real thing, I don't know. But so really what it comes down to is us as humans that exist on this world. We have for no reason, a lot of differences. But also for all reasons, we have a lot of differences, right? So we try and define and point out, like, what I'm doing is right and what you're doing is wrong. But, so something that I learned, or an understanding that I guess I've come to gain through life, and this is probably the first, like, thought that is gonna maybe be difficult for some people to grasp, but it also shouldn't be at the same time. So we have this problem, right, of good and bad. So this is what gets us into the situation of right and wrong. The hero versus the villain. All this throughout history has caused such a problem for us, right? So in order to eliminate that, there's an understanding that we all have to develop. There's an understanding that we all have to develop, right? And that's the knowledge that right and wrong is a perspective, okay? So that's probably the toughest thing for some people to grasp. Not just some people. I think it's everyone needs to grasp. It's not easy to understand that right and wrong is perspective based, which means in the end there is no right and wrong. So that doesn't mean we should go around doing whatever we want, right? Doesn't mean that there's not any consequences to our action. It simply means that a good thing for one person can be a bad thing for someone else, and a bad thing for one person can be a good thing for someone else. So you can say, well, there you go, good and bad exist. And, there's one way that's always good and there's one way that's always bad because of the perspective of God or a divine understanding. So I guess now is a good time for me to talk about and explain, omnipresence and omnipower, and there's fancy words, right? But what it comes down to is a God that is knows everything, right? A God that can do anything, and a God that is all present, right? So that concept falls into line with how there's good and bad in its perspective, and if a creator needs to meet those criteria, then he would understand that, it wouldn't even be a gender at all. But this creator, this existence, this thing would be a combined conscience. It would do nothing. I don't know if this is getting too, okay, I feel like I'm getting too technical with it. So good and bad. So the reason why good and bad can't exist in a perfect society, which is, I guess, the intent of all of this is to create that with a combined understanding. So to know both sides fully of the story, to know from a person's birth to or a being's birth to a being's death, right? To know all that and say that what they did is what they thought was best for themselves. And then something else to know that, and to know that what they did, that being thought it was best for itself and was making those decisions, right? And if those two decisions bumped into each other and one thought it was making the best decision for itself, another thought it was making the best decision for himself, no matter how impactful that decision is, both from the perspective of both of those, there was no right or wrong in there. There was no good or bad. It was a decision that was the result of everything that had to be made, right? So, with that being said, it's that understanding of the event. There's still consequences to those events, right? However, it's that understanding that the existence of the one being and the existence of the other being had to come together at that point and have that situation present. So we as a society, not even society, we as people working together to achieve great peace, right? Because that's the only way. It's not one group against the other or anything like that. It's all of us working together. So in order for us to do that, I feel like that's something we have to acknowledge, right? So that means that we're gonna have to change a lot of our current beliefs, rules, laws, all that kind of stuff. All right. So, or I don't even know if we have to change it. It's more of an understanding of how to deal with things. So it's not like we have to change everything. It's more of the understanding that the outcome of the consequences can't be severe. So we have to acknowledge that events happen, that from both perspectives, one will view it as a positive thing and one will view it as a negative thing. So with that, with us acknowledging that something will view something from a positive and negative thing, and that one may have thought that the decision they were making was correct. We have to understand, all of us, that decision was neither good or bad. It was simply an action. And certain actions have certain consequences, right? So those are laws and stuff we create, right? And that's how we make an order to how some events can seem terrible from one perspective, but from another perspective, they're not completely terrible. They actually are good. And this is the toughest. I think this is something that it's not tough to understand. It's actually really easy to understand, right? it's easy to see that somebody doing one thing thinks that that's a good answer, and somebody doing something else that is affected negatively by this other person thinks it's a bad thing, right? But we're able to see everything, and we need to be able to see everything. So in order to be able to see everything, right, we have the technology to do it. We're gonna have to record everything. And I know that that is an immediate, like, no, we can't record everything. We're not going to record everything. It's necessary. So it's necessary to create that omnipresence, all right? I know it sounds like we're creating a God, but in a sense we are, right? Because this, we're creating well, first off, the creator of everything would have created all of us, would have created this conversation, created everything for the intent for things to happen, right? Both past, present, and future. So whether it started time now and created everything in the past, or if it started time now and created everything in the future, or if it started time way back when and did the same thing, right? Hopefully that didn't go over too much. But we have the capabilities to create an almost omnipresence, right? And that omnipresence that we need to create is important, okay? Because we can't wait for judgment to come from somewhere else, right? That's not how existence is. Me being here talking to you and everything like that right now, that is just as same as all the events that had to have happened in order for this moment to exist. It's the same as any sort of miracle of I am not powerful, I'm not magical, and I can't just make something appear right here, right? Obviously people can edit things in there. But that's a different type of thing, right? So we need to, if we want to have a peaceful world, which that should be everyone's goal, all of our goals, is to live the best life for all of ourselves, right? So in order for that to happen, we need to have God. God needs to exist. We need the idea of an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-present being needs to exist. So we need to create a system or a structure of that, right? We don't need to wait until we die to see if something like that exists in a different spiritual realm than our current one, right? We need to have the understanding and combined agreements that we can create those things without the actual thing that we can't see, the existence, that moment in time that everything went from nothing to something, right? We don't need to grasp that. We don't need to visually see that. We can understand how that's possible, right? Just as easy as it is closing your eyes and opening your eyes and realizing there once was nothing and now there's something, to looking back on every single person looking back onto the moment that they had their first thought, right? Those moments are from nothing to something. Every single one of those. And it's all different for every single person, right? So we need to understand that all these, beliefs that we had our lives and have been taught our lives and all that stuff aren't wrong, right? There's a purpose for all of them. There's a direction for all of them. They all started from something and they got us to the moment that we're all here, realizing and understanding and coming together to make a perfect world. And that's the only way that it will happen, right? This isn't nobody bumps into some one perfect scenario, right? This is, we need to understand that creation and that all-powerful, all-present, all-powerful, all-present, all-knowing being, right, is achievable to one extent of our ability to achieve that type of structure in our lives, right? And that's what I'm getting at with the cameras. So these would not be, this would be to put us all in check. And that's what we need to realize is none of us, no one is better than someone else. Although almost everyone thinks it, because it makes sense that you believe your life is the most important, because your life is the most important life to yourself. It has to be. Your life has to be the most important life to you. And you also have to understand that everyone's life has to be the most important life to themselves. And that's why we all make the decisions that we think are best, no matter the outcome they are to other individuals. And you may say, oh, I always think about other individuals as well. And that's true. And just because you're making a decision that's best for yourself does not mean that it's better, that it's also best for everyone else. And what this is all coming to is that we just need to understand that we all want the same thing. We all want to live the best life that we possibly can. And there's a way that we can all achieve that, and that's by putting ourselves in check. That's by having the ability to look over every single event throughout time and say, I understand that you did this because of this. However, you cannot, because you did that, the consequences of that action are this. And we all need to have that check, because that's going to make us realize that, hey, I'm not going to do this thing because I know that there are consequences to this action, right? It's what we all believe currently. It's the system that already exists. We're not changing everything, right? It's the system that already exists. It's just knowing that there's that check there, right? And it's something that we can currently take out, right? We can deny that currently. We can deny that there's an existence that is putting us in check, in a spiritual sense when we pass. Like, oh, that's when it's all going to be solved. Like, we can, like, that can exist. That's not, or I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But we can also create that ourselves, right? Like, we can put everyone in check. We have that ability. And the outcome of that would be nobody would do things that they know are wrong. And we all have that, right? You can still get to those points, but we'll be able to see that. We'll be able to see and understand everything of those actions, right? So hopefully we'll be, with all this combined understanding of this is how everything is, hopefully we won't put ourselves in situations that escalate to certain levels. And I think we can all realize that that is really what it comes down to, right? We get down to these points where we start to get caught up in events, and that's what gets everyone to those points of making decisions that they probably shouldn't, right? But if you know from the get-go that somebody's watching, that we're all watching, that we all can view this, that we all can see this, right? We're not going to make those decisions. We simply won't make those decisions. So this is absolutely necessary to do, because there's a lot of people who don't believe in any sort of divine check. There's a lot of people that don't do that, right? So because all those people, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with having your own beliefs. Everyone should have their beliefs of what they think. There's nothing wrong with that. However, because that exists, right? And it's not just people who don't believe in a divine. There's people who believe in that and think that their actions are just because of their belief, right? So because of all of that, because of everyone's beliefs, right, we need to have this common belief. We need to have this common understanding that we need to put ourselves in check. We need to, and have the capabilities of watching every moment. Okay? This isn't, you still have your thoughts, right? You still have everything that goes on in your head. You're still thinking, you're still making decisions and everything like that. This isn't controlling you, right? This is simply the existence of an omnipresence, right? And that omnipresence that a lot of people lost their belief in is now going to have understanding that it's now a real thing. So this understanding that, like, hey, this thing knows, we know, everyone knows that this conversation can be used, right, to prove whatever it needs to be proved. So if an event happened that led up to it, you know that, well, I've previously done these things and this led up to that. So people will be able to look back and understand that. We don't have to have all these tie-ups, right? We don't have to have all these tie-ups in life of, like, lies won't matter. lies won't matter. Truth and lies won't matter. Because we'll be able to see. We'll be able to know everything. And that is what's going to create the peace. It's necessary, right? It is absolutely necessary. Because without that, and it's not, this isn't something that is used to create weird little crimes and, like, oh, at your own residence or at your own place of, existence, you cannot do these things, and to target people and do all that kind of stuff. Like, because we can put all those people in check. We can say, okay, you want to come up with this law, let's go back and look at all the conversations that you've had and make sure that this law that you want to say that you're making because of these just reasons, that you're saying that this is a just law. We can go back and look at all your conversations that you've had regarding that situation. We can go back and look at it and say, okay, so you truly do believe this because of these things, because of these events and these things that you said with people. However, it's not necessary. It wouldn't be necessary to do those things. Because we won't ever get to that level. There won't be the lies, deceit, this is good for us, not good for them. There won't be those conversations that currently exist, because you know those conversations are not good for everyone. You know they aren't good for everyone. And because you know that, it would stop you from doing and going to that final step, right? So we wouldn't have to look back on all those wrong conversations that you had, or those moments that you've thought these things that you shouldn't have. We won't have to do that. And if you want to create a world, if we all want to create this world, this is what needs to happen. All right. I don't know. I honestly thought that there was more that needed to be said. I thought that there was more explanations that I was gonna have to make and say and do. I don't know if I'm gonna edit this. I don't know if I'm gonna post this. I don't know anything about it. But yeah, I thought there was gonna be more explaining that needed to be done. But I guess it's good that things are simpler than I thought they were gonna be. This should solve everything, right? I mean, it's not gonna be an overnight event, but this should be the understanding that we all need to have, and the agreement of this is the necessary route in order to achieve a perfect world, as perfect as we can make it, right? And there's a lot that's gonna go into making this achievable. All right, this isn't next day kind of thing, right? But this is the end result that we all understand of what we're going to achieve, and it's going to make everything a lot easier, a lot less stressful, right? We're not gonna have tie-ups in courts and all that kind of stuff. We're not gonna have all these questions of, oh, did you really say that? Because we can go and see if we really said that, right? Obviously, there needs to be a structure of how it's viewed that's not invasive, right? That is only used when necessary, and I'm sure there'll be lots of conversations on that, but it all comes down to understanding that those conversations should be recorded as well, right? That everything needs to be recorded, right? Just imagine if we could go back in time right now and look at any event and say, wow, that person totally was correct in what they said and how it happened, right? That is the importance, because right now we can't do that, but we can do that. We can. And that's what we all need to agree on and understand. And us all agreeing on that, which it's not he said, she said, this kind of thing. It's an understanding of what an omnipresence is. It's an understanding of what the word is, that to be able to take an event and find out if that actually happened. To be able to look at an event from the past perfectly. That's what we have to create. And we can create it. We have the tools to create that stuff. So it's not an easy overnight thing that we're going to do, all right? It's just what needs to be done. And we all just need to understand that that's what needs to be done, regardless of anything, regardless of where you came from, where you are, whatever, because this moment, the understanding of this is taking place, right? Now I need to be putting myself in check, because now I know that my actions are 100% being recorded and can result in whatever outcomes they result in. That understanding is going to make us make better decisions, all of us, right? It's going to make us make better laws, right? You can look back and say, well, I see you didn't want to do that. I understand that. We all understand that. We see this. We see why you made that decision, right? We see that, hey, this law is unnecessary because the reason why these are happening is because of this. We can see all that stuff. And us being able to do that is going to allow us to make a better existence for everyone. Because we are not capable of putting ourselves in check. And whatever our religious beliefs are, they are not enough to have our lives be in check, all right? At least not in this existence, at least not in this form of existence, all right? So, to make a better life for everyone, every single person, right? This is what needs to be done. And I don't see any way that anyone can oppose this. Like, it's in question of why you would oppose this. Maybe because the current laws or way that you conducting your life, if this was imposed, would be changed, right? Because a lot of people don't like to change their way they're doing things, or maybe they don't agree with certain laws and all that kind of stuff. And I can see how those people would oppose it, right? Because you're making, you have a problem with not your actions. You have a problem with how people view your actions, which is understandable, right? But you shouldn't have to worry about that, because it would be a lot easier for you to explain your actions with this past, this omnipresence that's now in existence, right? So if you think that you're just in your actions, this would be easy to prove you're just in your actions. If you're not just in your actions, and you'd see that yourself, right? This is a self-reflection of like, well, maybe what I'm doing isn't really the best for everyone kind of decision, right? Maybe what I'm doing is benefiting me a little bit too strong and not helping everyone else out, and maybe what I'm doing is really damaging other people, right? And this or what it's going to be able is you to look, and us to look at all these people that make these laws and go, you are the ones who are damaging people. You are the ones who had these bad intentions. This law that was created needs to change because of these bad intentions, or these intentions that were developed and created, because they weren't created for us all. They were created to benefit solely a certain situation, to do whatever, suppress or oppress, or just whatever decisions would make us all realize, like, this is not the reason why you make law. This is not the reason why you come together and agree that something should be punished, an action should be punished or not. It's not to fund certain things and all that kind of stuff. It's not, I'm not going to get into all that kind of stuff, because those are the kind of conversations, right, that maybe I should get into all that stuff. So yeah, there's going to be those questions, right, of what laws or what's just and all that kind of stuff. But ideally, the same structures that we currently have can support those actions, right? It's just that now when we go and question someone and say, what's coming up with those thoughts? Why are your thoughts so different than my thoughts? Why are we having this disagreement? We can go and look back and look at those actions that created these thoughts of, well, I've had this experience in my life. We can go back and look at that experience that you had in your life that made you have your beliefs. We can all go back and see that, and we can see that your beliefs came from that situation, and how they're not wrong, how what you're saying is important and should exist, because had that law existed, it would have prevented that action that negatively affected your life, right? And man, I feel like I have to get into this too. So because of this whole good and bad thing, we have to reform a lot of things, and it will come with the process of doing this, right? It'll all come together, and we're gonna have to reform a lot of stuff. So, like, a lot of things we'll realize aren't that bad, right? Actions, hopefully a lot of actions just won't take place, because shady actions, right? Actions that normally people do when people aren't looking. They'll know that those actions can now be seen. So shady actions won't happen. Not saying lies won't happen or all that kind of stuff, or they won't happen, but we'll be able to catch that like immediately, right? And we also have the combined understanding that it's not we don't have to punish so severely anymore. Even no matter how like outraged we are at the seemingly randomness of crimes, like we'll be able to go back and like see like, oh wow, yeah, like yes, this person started to escalate, and their actions and their attitude and their stuff led them to this point to make this decision. We'll be able to go back and see all that stuff, right? And because we'll be able to go and see all that stuff, right, we'll be able to be like, well, like, this is why. We'll be able to tell someone, like, this is why you did this. And we understand, and you'll be able to say, this is why you did this. And we'll be able to understand it, and we'll see it clearly. And we'll be able to understand it, right? And with being able to understand it, that allows us to understand that things do happen. There are reasons for things that do happen, even if they are medical, right? We'll be able to see that. But if they're and if they're actional, like if one thing caused another thing to happen, we'll be able to see all that stuff. Like we will be able to see everything. There'll be times for having to explain, but that's to pin down where to look to get these events and all that kind of stuff. But everything will be recorded. Everything will have that omnipresence, right? And obviously, if you try and infringe on this or try and do things around this presence that we create, that's something that would have to be dealt with, because it's all of us understanding like this is for the best. So ideally what would happen is we wouldn't have like a jail systems, and even if we did have jail systems, there wouldn't be this like corruption that's going, or there wouldn't be like these events going on in these systems, because those people would be put in check immediately too. Like everything would be in check, everything, absolutely everything, and that's how it should be. All right. I think we can all agree that you're not going to do something that you're going to be caught for, and the outcome of it, right? Or you might still make that decision, and it is okay to make that decision, right? It is okay to do that. However, there's still consequences for that, right? So it may make sense, and it may be just for you as an individual to make a decision, right? Or you may have a strong desire, an almost seemingly uncontrollable desire to do something, right? And hopefully, because of this entire thing, realize that the outcome of what you would do would not be worth it. Hopefully that would stop you, and it should stop you. should stop everyone, from all of us, from doing that thing, from going to that extreme of punishment for our actions. It should. And if it doesn't, and we can see the justness behind it, no matter how wrong the action, I mean, that's something that we would all have to acknowledge, if that exists. And maybe it does, maybe it will, maybe it does. And that's what we need to understand, is that the whole right and wrong, you did this kind of thing, and this is good, this is bad, that whole thing, that's very perspective based, and this will allow us to look at things and go, yeah, this law was created because we thought that the people doing these things were doing them out of these reasons, and it turns out that the people doing these things are not doing them out of these reasons, and they're actually doing them out of wrong reasons or different reasons over here, and those are actually the reasons that are more harmful to everyone than these reasons. And have these reasons not existed, had these situations not existed, then these things wouldn't exist. And that's what we really need to get down to, because there's a lot of stuff that certain people are benefiting from out of dishonesty. And this will really allow us to view those dishonest situations, right? Because if something's unjust and wrong, right, it is. It's by definition, those things happen. And we'll be able to see those unjust moments and be able to pinpoint them and look at them. And because of that, we'll be able to look at it and understand the severity of it and look at how to fix it, right? Because this whole just lock people away kind of thing, it's not the solution yet, but if we don't, it's because we're doing this because we don't know the solution. We as a society, we as beings, right, we don't have the best solution because we can't look back at these events. We can't say, okay, well, you're not going to do this again because these things that led up to that won't happen again. Or we'll be able to say, you're going to do this again because these situations that had led up to this will happen again. And we need to make sure you have the ability to fix that before this happens again. So we'll be able to properly rehabilitate people back into the total existence of everything, right? And this isn't, this message applies to everyone. This is a message that literally everyone in the world can do. Everyone in existence can do, right? They can understand and can shoot for. This isn't a certain country message. This isn't a certain gender message. This message is for everyone, for anyone, every single, from the smallest little individual to the greatest nation, planet, can make these changes. This can happen, and it should, and eventually it will. So I'm sure this isn't the end of this, but I think that's a good hour spent, right? So let's look for making that omnipresence for us all to put ourselves in check, so that we will make a better world for everyone, absolutely everyone, right? We know what's just, and we know that this will make our world peaceful, and that's what we all want. We all want peace. We all want peace, right? So that's what we need to do.